Every morning, Sandra sets off on her long journey to Lockleys Comprehensive School.
Tell me, how do you feel about having to travel out to Lockleys?
Well, I don't feel good about it because when you catch the bus, it doesn't bring you all the way there, and it costs a lot of money. The 22 down there, it costs 31 pence for me to go to school, and I'm not allowed to have a fare card, so I don't take the 22, I take the 71. But the 71, it drops you all the way out Filton, and we have to walk the rest of the way.
So how long does it take you?
To get to school, it takes me about half an hour.
Sandra's mother, Mrs. Simpson, lives nearly 3 miles from Lockleys. Her eldest daughter passed the selection procedure and got into Fairfield Grammar School, but Sandra was unsuccessful.
Sandra was upset when she didn't get into Fairfield because she was told at Sefton Park that her work was good and she should be able to attend Fairfield. And when the selection went through and the papers came back, she was told she had to go to Lockleys. And it's quite a way from home, while Fairfield is quite nearby.
Sandra and Mrs. Simpson live in the middle of Montpellier, part of the north central area of Bristol. Half an hour after Sandra has left for school, Jo Gower sets off for Fairfield Grammar. Jo has only a 2-minute journey, for the school is just around the corner. Jo was lucky enough to pass the selection procedure that exists in Bristol only in the north central area. North Central still has a secondary modern school, but that will be closed down in the summer of 1981, leaving only comprehensive schools and grammar schools like Fairfield. Not all the children who attend Fairfield come from the area just around the school. Some travel from as far as Henbury, the north end of North Central. But Fairfield Grammar is the nearest secondary school to St Paul's. The next nearest is Cottam, but this too is a grammar school. But those children who do not pass the selection procedure to get into a grammar school have a longer journey. The nearest comprehensive is St George Redfield, and children from the St Paul's area are scattered around the comprehensive schools all over the city. The new chairperson of Avon's Education Committee is Labour councillor Pat Forrest. She strongly opposes the selective system that exists in the ward that she represents.
In most of Bristol and Avon, in fact, children who live in a locality tend to move on as a group to a local comprehensive school. But that isn't the case here. Because we live in an area where you've got selection, it means that those children that aren't deemed bright enough to go to either Fairfield or Cottam, they then have to go to other schools. And I think if you took a survey of young people who live in, well, the north central area at this end of the city, you would find that they went to as many as 9 different secondary schools. Now, this means that probably when they get to a school, they know very few children, and this can be difficult because all secondary schools are much bigger, and it can be very overwhelming, and for them to go to a new school where they don't know many people can be difficult. You've also got the difficulty of bus fares. The nearest school we've got is in fact Fairfield, and it's certainly from here, it's within a 10-minute walk. And if they're told, no, you can't go to Fairfield School, and for the children here, Lockleys is the school that they're supposed to go to, that means a bus fare. And because it means a bus fare, it also means dinner money. And you could find a parent who is faced with the fact that if they've got a child here, because they can't go to Fairfield, they are faced with something like a £5 bill for bus fares and dinner money. And that, so you've got a financial burden for parents, and for children you've got the fact that they don't feel that they have a school which is at least nearby for them to go to.
Every morning at the bus stops nearest to St Paul's, children wait to travel to comprehensive schools a long way from their homes. Penn Park, Southmead, Monks Park, Filton. Some have to travel up to 5 miles. The bus fares are more than a dog can afford. Meanwhile, children are arriving at Cottam Grammar School, some of them using their own transport. Others are driven in by their parents. Many of the pupils at Cottam come from the better off areas of Bristol. Most Cottam parents have resisted any proposals to change the present system. Although Cottam is now taking a wider range of ability, many parents believe that the prestige of a grammar school education must be maintained at all costs.
What do you see as an answer to this situation?
Well, I would like to see us doing away with selection, saying, right, we're not going to have an 11 plus test anymore, and that Fairfield and Cottam are made, if you like, into one school, whatever you want to call it. You probably have to find another name for it, and have Fairfield as a lower school that would take young people from the age of 11 to 13, and then at the age of 13 they would all transfer to Cottam. This would mean you would have a local school for youngsters to go to. Initially, they'd just be 10 minutes away. Those who could come home to dinner. And of course, when they're that bit older and they're that bit, you know, perhaps their road sense is a bit, well, obviously it would be a lot better, and Cottam isn't that far away, they would then be able to go on to Cottam.
But do you not think having split schools, split education is going to have problems of its own? It's not possibly the ideal situation, but on the other hand there are some advantages, I think, to this. And in fact many of the Bristol schools and Avon schools are on split site schools anyway. But you get some criticisms made that secondary schools are too big these days. Now, if you were to have Fairfield as a lower school, you'd have a school of about 500 children, which means they could all get to know one another. It wouldn't be too overwhelming. The staff could probably get to know most of them. And I think this, in fact, would give a far more homely atmosphere. And then when the child is older, they can go off to what would be a bigger school with many of the facilities that they would in fact need.
St Paul's does have local primary schools with very good reputations. Cabot is right in the middle of St Paul's. This is a multiracial school where the children get off to a flying start in life. But what happens to them when they leave to go on to secondary school? Then they come up against the barrier of selective education.
And so what is your general feeling about selective education?
I think it's unfair on the parents and on the children as well, because the parents have got to find the bus fare. If you haven't got the bus fare, then the children have got to walk, and it's very far for them to walk. It's either they take the bus in the morning and walk home in the evening, which is quite unfair.
What will happen to the children of St Paul's who do not pass the selection procedure? Many will see themselves as failures, condemned when they are older to join Bristol's ever-growing dole queues.
It's so hard to say they start to sell them soul. Market Thatcher is a criminal, handing out policies like a Tinster General. Sooner or later say she riding for a fall, and that's not all. Check it out. She cut out.
Attempts were made to get the point of view of the councillors who support the present system, but we regret to say that these attempts were unsuccessful. Many thanks to Talisman for the use of Dole Age.